The colony world of New Horizon died in silence, not with the thunderous roar of explosions or the dramatic screams of panic, but with a clinical precision that spoke to the cold calculation of the Zorn Collective. Maya Torres watched through the reinforced transparency of the underground communication hub's last remaining viewport. The landscape outside transformed from verdant farmlands and gleaming colony structures to a molten hellscape in less than 17 minutes. 17 minutes was all it took for the Zorn to erase generations of human settlement. Her fingers, calloused from years of technical work, hovered over the emergency communication console. Protocol dictated an immediate evacuation signal. Standard procedure demanded she preserve what little data might survive. But Maya Torres was anything but standard. The daughter of a quantum communications engineer and a xenobiological strategist, she had grown up on the frontier of human expansion. Her parents had always told her that survival wasn't about following rules. It was about seeing opportunities where others saw only destruction. Outside, the Zorn attack ships moved with a terrible beauty. Biomechanical constructs that defied traditional understanding of spacecraft, they resembled living organisms more than machines. Tendrile appendages of dark metallic substance probed the colony's defenses, each movement calculated with inhuman precision. Plasma cannons erupted in synchronized waves, turning buildings, infrastructure, and human lives into instant plasma. Maya's family was gone. Her mother, who had been conducting research in the main laboratory complex, would have been among the first targets. Her father, who had been coordinating colony defense systems, would have fought until his last breath. The communication hub's reinforced bunker was the only reason she still drew breath. Most would have been paralyzed by grief. Most would have accepted death as an inevitable conclusion. Maya began to work. The damaged Zorn communication array lay in pieces near the emergency bulkhead. Most would have seen a destroyed piece of alien technology, a worthless hunk of metal and circuitry. Maya saw a puzzle, a challenge, an opportunity. Her multi-tool came out, a compact device that was part diagnostic scanner, part quantum decryption key, part universal interface. It had been a gift from her father on her 16th birthday, customized far beyond its original manufacturing specifications. Always remember, he told her then, technology is just a language, and every language can be learned, translated, and ultimately manipulated. The array's alien components were a complex lattice of biocrystalline structures and quantum entanglement circuits. Where another communication specialist might have been overwhelmed, Maya saw familiar patterns. She recognized transmission protocols, understood the basic linguistic structure of the alien communication network. Her tablet, a device that had survived countless field expeditions and was reinforced with her own custom modifications, began to interface with the alien technology. Lines of impossible code began to scroll across its screen. Alien symbols transformed into readable data streams. She wasn't just collecting information. She was infiltrating. The Zorn believed in absolute technological superiority. Their attacks were mathematical equations brought to violent life. They calculated human resistance as a simple variable to be eliminated. They didn't understand that human beings, especially those raised on frontier colonies, were walking definitions of unexpected variables. Maya's fingers danced across the interface. She wasn't just extracting data. She was inserting something far more dangerous, a virus, but not a traditional computer virus. This was a piece of code designed to do more than simply disrupt. It was engineered to understand, to learn, to adapt. Her parents' life work was encoded into every line. Quantum communication theories that pushed the boundaries of known science, adaptive learning algorithms that mimicked human cognitive processes, a piece of pure human innovation that would burrow into the Zorn's supposedly impenetrable communication network. When the rescue ships finally arrived, they would find something unprecedented. Not just a survivor, but the first weapon in humanity's true defense. Maya Torres smiled. The Zorn had come to destroy a colony. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous. They had given humanity a reason to fight. The bridge of the UESS Defiance was a symphony of controlled chaos. Holographic displays flickered with real-time data, each screen a window into humanity's most desperate hour. Red indicators consumed the tactical map faster than anyone could comprehend. Another colony lost, another defensive line shattered. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of this storm, her posture a study in controlled tension. She was not a tall woman, nor did she have the chiseled features of propaganda recruitment posters. Her power came from something more fundamental, an ability to see patterns where others saw only destruction. "Status report," she commanded, her voice cutting through the ambient noise of panicked communications and blaring warnings. Lieutenant Marcus Chen, her tactical officer, looked like he was about to be sick. The latest casualty reports painted a grim picture. "We've lost contact with the Proxima Sector colonies. The Zorn advance is moving faster than our current predictive models anticipated. At this rate, we're dead." Rodriguez finished for him, but there was no fear in her voice, only a cold, calculating determination. Her eyes traced the holographic battle map. The Zorn ships moved like liquid mercury, their biomechanical forms bending the very laws of physics. Traditional military doctrine suggested retreat. Conventional wisdom screamed for surrender. Rodriguez had never been good at following rules. Her military career had been anything but conventional. Born on the resource-poor mining colony of Titan's Edge, she'd learned survival was about adaptation long before she'd ever seen a Zorn warship. Her early years had been a constant battle against harsh environments, limited resources, and the brutal economics of deep space mining colonies. The communication console chirped. An encrypted transmission from Maya Torres, the survivor from New Horizon, began to decode. What appeared was unlike any military intelligence they'd seen before. It wasn't just data. It was a complete reimagining of how the Zorn conducted warfare. Torres had managed to extract something far more valuable than simple tactical information. She'd found the rhythm of the Zorn's attack patterns. "Marcus," Rodriguez said quietly, "recall all ships within the Jupiter defensive perimeter. I want every vessel prepped for a complete tactical reconfiguration." The lieutenant blinked. "Captain, that would mean abandoning our current defensive strategy entirely. We'd be leaving critical sectors completely exposed." A ghost of a smile crossed Rodriguez's face. "Exactly." The next few hours were a masterclass in military improvisation. Rodriguez's strategy defied every known principle of space warfare. Instead of maintaining rigid formation, human ships began to move with an almost organic unpredictability. They would cluster, then disperse. Damaged vessels weren't evacuated. They became weapons themselves. Each ship's computer system was reprogrammed to incorporate Maya Torres's adaptive algorithms. The rigid, predictive nature of standard military AI was replaced with something more dynamic, more human. The Zorn had conquered thousands of civilizations by exploiting their opponents' predictability. They analyzed, they calculated, they destroyed. Their entire military doctrine was built on the assumption that intelligent species would always choose the most logical path. Humanity was about to prove how wrong they were. The first test came at the Battle of Epsilon Relay, a critical communications hub that the Zorn had marked for total destruction. Traditional military analysis suggested the human fleet would attempt to defend the station at all costs. Instead, Rodriguez did something nobody expected. She ordered a complete withdrawal. But this was no ordinary retreat. As human ships appeared to flee, they left behind a series of carefully constructed technological traps. Quantum entanglement devices, adaptive signal disruptors, technological landmines that would transform the very nature of space combat. The Zorn pursued, confident in their technological superiority. They had no idea what was coming. Marcus Chen watched the tactical display, his earlier despair replaced by a growing sense of something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. Captain Elena Rodriguez wasn't just fighting a war. She was rewriting the fundamental rules of survival. and the universe was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to turn certain defeat into unexpected victory. The research facility was a cathedral of controlled chaos. Holographic displays danced with impossible equations, quantum computing arrays hummed with barely contained energy, and at the center of it all stood Dr. Akira Chen, humanity's last, best hope. She wasn't what most people expected of a revolutionary scientist. Short, with perpetually ink-stained fingers and eyes that seemed to look through reality rather than at it, Chen represented a generation of researchers forged in the crucible of humanity's desperate fight for survival. The object of her current obsession lay spread across 3 separate containment tables: a fractured Zorn communication module salvaged from the ruins of New Horizon Colony. Most research teams would have approached it with clinical detachment. Chen approached it like a complex, living puzzle. On the wall beside her, a photograph caught her occasional glance. It showed a squad of soldiers, her brother among them, lost during the first wave of Zorn attacks. Where another scientist might have been consumed by grief, Chen channeled her loss into something far more dangerous: absolute determination. "Talk to me," she muttered, her specialized quantum interface gloves manipulating holographic representations of the alien technology. The Zorn's technological superiority had been their greatest weapon. Their computational systems operated on principles so advanced that human scientists had initially believed them to be indistinguishable from magic. Quantum entanglement, transdimensional data storage, adaptive neural networks that could predict and counter strategies in milliseconds. These were the tools that had crushed countless civilizations. But Chen saw something different. Where others saw impenetrable technology, she saw patterns. Patterns that reminded her of something fundamental about human consciousness: its beautiful, terrible unpredictability. Her breakthrough came from an unlikely source. Alongside the alien technology lay a tablet recovered from a fallen soldier, a device filled with the messy, complicated reality of human life. Personal photographs, fragments of music, incomplete messages to loved ones, random notes, diary entries that made no logical sense. Most would have dismissed these as irrelevant data. Chen recognized them as the key to everything. Human consciousness wasn't a linear process. It was a complex, adaptive system that defied traditional computational models. Emotions, memories, random associations, these weren't bugs in human cognition. They were features. The quantum disruption pulse she was developing wasn't just a weapon. It was a philosophical statement about the nature of intelligence itself. Traditional computational models worked like precise mathematical equations: input, process, output. The Zorn's entire technological ecosystem was built on this principle. Their AI systems were designed to analyze, predict, and counter with ruthless efficiency. Chen's pulse would introduce something entirely different: controlled chaos. Each line of code was a carefully constructed piece of adaptive intelligence. It didn't just aim to disrupt the Zorn's systems. It was designed to learn from them, to adapt, to become something the alien technology could never predict. Her team worked in shifts, but Chen barely noticed time passing. Days blurred into weeks. The research facility became her entire world, a microcosm of humanity's desperate fight for survival. The military brass grew impatient. They wanted results, weapons, something they could use immediately. Chen understood their urgency, but true innovation couldn't be rushed. "We're not just building a weapon," she would tell her increasingly frustrated supervisors. "We're rewriting the fundamental understanding of technological adaptation." Her final breakthrough came during her 37th consecutive hour of work. The quantum disruption pulse wasn't just a method of attack. It was a complete reimagining of how intelligent systems could interact. The pulse would do more than disable Zorn technology. It would infect it, learn from it, transform it. When the first successful test occurred, the research facility went silent. The holographic displays showed something unprecedented: a Zorn communication network slowly being rewritten from the inside, its impossible computational defenses gradually giving way to something more: Human. Dr. Akira Chen allowed herself the smallest of smiles. The Zorn had come to humanity believing they were bringing extinction. Instead, they had introduced the universe to a new form of intelligence, and humanity was about to show them exactly what that meant. The recruitment center on New Terra looked more like a war memorial than a processing facility. Walls lined with holographic displays showed the faces of colonies destroyed, worlds reduced to ash, families torn apart by the Zorn Collective's relentless advance. Where another species might have seen only despair, humanity saw something else entirely, a call to action. Maya Torres stood at the center of this emotional storm, her role having transformed from a lone survivor to the architect of humanity's most innovative psychological resistance strategy. The Zorn had a fundamental misunderstanding about warfare. They believed conflict was a mathematical equation: resources, tactical advantages, probability of success. They had conquered thousands of civilizations by breaking their spirit, by making resistance seem mathematically impossible. They had never encountered humans. Maya's breakthrough came from analyzing the very thing the Zorn considered humanity's greatest weakness: emotional complexity. Every lost colony, every destroyed settlement became more than just a tragedy. It became a narrative. A story of resistance that spread faster than any traditional communication network. The first psychological warfare protocol was deceptively simple. Instead of traditional recruitment videos showing military might, they'd broadcast something entirely different: personal stories, raw, unfiltered accounts of survival, interviews with children who had lost everything but refused to surrender, elderly survivors describing their resistance, scientists explaining how each loss brought humanity closer to understanding and defeating the Zorn. Recruitment centers were overwhelmed, but not by propaganda. By pure, unfiltered human determination. A teenager who had survived the destruction of her farming colony by hiding in an underground storage unit. A group of teachers who continued to educate children in refugee camps, teaching them not just survival skills, but the history of human resilience. Engineers who were rebuilding communication networks using salvage technology from destroyed colonies. The Zorn communication intercepts told a story of growing confusion. Their tactical algorithms couldn't comprehend what they were witnessing. Each human loss didn't diminish resistance, it multiplied it. In the refugee camps and temporary colonies, something remarkable was happening. Traditional social structures dissolved. A new kind of society emerged, one where every individual understood that survival meant collective action. Maya worked with a team of psychologists, linguists, and tactical analysts. They weren't just creating a resistance movement. They were weaponizing human narrative itself. The communication broadcasts became a form of distributed warfare. Each story was carefully constructed, not to spread fear, but to spread a specific type of hope. A hope that was equal parts determination, innovation, and absolute refusal to accept defeat. Intercepted Zorn communications revealed their growing panic. Their collective consciousness, designed to analyze and predict based on historical conquest patterns, began to experience what could only be described as a system-wide existential crisis. Humans weren't following any known pattern of resistance. They were creating entirely new ones. The recruitment videos became something more than traditional military propaganda. They were living documents of human adaptation. A Marine who had lost her entire family but was now developing new shield technologies. A young programmer who was creating adaptive communication networks from salvaged alien technology. Each story was a weapon more powerful than any plasma cannon. The Zorn had believed they could conquer humanity by destroying its infrastructure. Instead, they had done something far more dangerous. They had given humanity a reason to become something entirely new. In the refugee camps, in the temporary colonies, in the makeshift research facilities, a transformation was occurring. Humanity was no longer just fighting a war. They were reimagining what it meant to be a species. Maya Torres looked out over a training facility filled with recruits from every destroyed colony. They weren't soldiers in the traditional sense. They were something else. Survivors. Innovators. a living, breathing embodiment of a species that refused to be defined by its limitations. The Zorn had come to destroy humanity. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous, a species that understood that true strength wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about transforming it. The staging area looked like a graveyard of technological dreams. Damaged ships, salvaged from a dozen destroyed colonies, stood like wounded veterans waiting for one final mission. 50 human vessels faced an armada of over 2,000 Zorn warships, a numerical disadvantage that would have crushed the spirit of any other species. Captain Elena Rodriguez surveyed the fleet with a calculating gaze that betrayed no hint of the impossible odds they faced. "They're not ships," she said quietly to her first officer, Lieutenant Marcus Chen. "They're possibilities." Every vessel had been modified beyond recognition. The research teams led by Dr. Akira Chen and Maya Torres had transformed these ships into something that defied traditional understanding of space combat. Where standard military doctrine demanded uniformity, these ships were as unique as the human crews that operated them. A mining vessel from the Titan colonies had been retrofitted with experimental quantum disruption cannons. A damaged medical transport now carried a communication warfare suite that could potentially infiltrate and disorient entire Zorn battle networks. A research vessel that had once studied deep space phenomena was now a mobile computational hub, its adaptive AI systems designed to learn and counter alien tactics in real time. The Zorn's tactical analysis would have shown a ragtag collection of mismatched vessels. What they couldn't see was the intricate web of human innovation that connected these ships. Rodriguez's battle plan was nothing short of heresy in traditional military circles. Instead of a coordinated attack, she proposed something that looked like complete chaos. Ships would move with an unpredictability that would make no sense to a logic-driven computational system. "We're going to fight the way the universe fights," she told her assembled commanders. Chaotic, adaptive, unpredictable. The first engagement would become legendary. As the human fleet approached the Zorn's central defensive line, something unprecedented happened. Damaged ships didn't retreat. They became weapons. A vessel with catastrophic drive failure would suddenly alter its trajectory, using its own mass as a kinetic weapon. Escape pods transformed into signal-jamming platforms. Destroyed ships left behind technological traps that would continue to fight long after their crews were gone. Maya Torres's communication warfare protocols came into full effect. The Zorn's computational systems, designed to predict and counter every possible strategy, began to experience what could only be described as a massive, galaxy-wide system failure. Human ships moved like nothing the Zorn had ever encountered. They clustered, then dispersed. They presented false targets, then struck from unexpected angles. Each vessel was both a weapon and a sensor, sharing information through adaptive networks that rewrote themselves faster than the Zorn could analyze them. Dr. Chen's quantum disruption technology turned each human ship into a potential technological virus. The very act of engaging human vessels became dangerous for the Zorn. Their systems would be slowly, methodically invaded and transformed. Lieutenant Chen watched the tactical displays with a mixture of terror and excitement. The battle made no sense. By all conventional metrics, they should have been destroyed within minutes. Instead, they were winning. The Zorn's collective consciousness began to experience something it had never encountered before: uncertainty. Each human action defied their predictive models. Ships that should have been destroyed continued to fight. Vessels that appeared to be retreating would suddenly become the most dangerous threat. 12 hours into the battle, the Zorn lost more ships than they had in the previous 12 months of conflict combined. It wasn't just a battle. It was a fundamental challenge to everything the Zorn understood about warfare, intelligence, and survival. Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching as the impossible became reality. The numerical advantage meant nothing. Human innovation, human spirit, human unpredictability. These were the true weapons. "We're not just fighting a war," she said quietly, more to herself than to anyone else. "We're rewriting the rules of existence." The universe was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to turn certain defeat into unexpected victory. The research complex sprawled across what was once a barren moon, now transformed into humanity's most critical technological sanctuary. Dr. Akira Chen stood at the epicenter of a revolution that would redefine the very concept of intelligence. Scattered across holographic displays were fragments of breakthrough that would have been inconceivable mere months ago. Neural network patterns that mimicked human cognitive processes, adaptive computing systems that learned and evolved with each microsecond of operation, technological constructs that blurred the line between machine and consciousness. Chen's latest discovery was nothing short of miraculous. Human neural patterns, chaotic, emotional, filled with seemingly random connections, were actually a form of distributed computing that no linear, logic-based system could comprehend. Where the Zorn saw weakness in human unpredictability, Chen saw the most advanced form of intelligence in the known universe. "It's not about processing power," she explained to a group of military strategists and researchers, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "It's about adaptive complexity." The walls of the research complex told a story of human resilience. Photographs of destroyed colonies stood alongside breakthrough technological diagrams. Each image was a testament to humanity's ability to transform loss into innovation. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source. A damaged communication module from a destroyed research vessel, initially considered nothing more than technological debris, became the key to understanding something profound about human consciousness. Most scientific teams would have approached the module with clinical detachment. Chen's team saw it as a living puzzle, each fragment a potential window into a new understanding of intelligence. Their discovery challenged everything the Zorn understood about technological superiority. Human computer systems began to link in ways that mimicked human social networks. Each ship, each research station, each communication hub became a node in a living, breathing, adaptive computational network. It wasn't just a technological system, it was something closer to a collective consciousness. Maya Torres's earlier work on communication warfare provided the foundation. The adaptive algorithms she had developed during the initial Zorn attacks now became something far more significant, a new form of distributed intelligence that could learn, adapt, and evolve faster than any known computational system. The military implications were staggering. Each human vessel became more than just a weapon. It became a potential learning node in a galaxy-wide neural network. Lieutenant Marcus Chen, no relation to Akira, watched in amazement as test simulations revealed something unprecedented. Human ships could now share tactical information, adapt to changing battlefield conditions, and make collective decisions in microseconds. Not through predetermined algorithms, but through a process that was startlingly close to human intuition. "We're not just fighting," Akira Chen told the assembled researchers. "We're creating a new form of intelligence." The Zorn's AI networks, designed to predict and counter every possible strategy, began to experience system-wide anomalies. Tactical projections that had once been absolute became increasingly unreliable. The very act of engaging human technology became a risk, each interaction potentially introducing unpredictable variables that could compromise entire computational networks. It wasn't just a technological revolution. It was a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence could be. Intercepted Zorn communications revealed growing panic. Their collective consciousness, built on millennia of logical conquest, was encountering something it could not understand. Humanity wasn't just resisting. It was evolving in real time. The research complex became humanity's most powerful weapon. Each breakthrough wasn't just a technological advancement. It was a statement. A declaration that intelligence was more than cold calculation. It was adaptation, creativity, the ability to transform limitation into opportunity. Dr. Chen looked out over the research facility, understanding that they were doing more than developing technology to win a war. They were rewriting the fundamental understanding of consciousness itself. The Zorn had come to humanity believing they were bringing extinction. Instead, they had introduced the universe to a new form of existence, and humanity was just getting started. The galactic core burned. Millions of kilometers of space transformed into a canvas of technological warfare, where the fundamental rules of combat dissolved into pure, chaotic innovation. The Battle of the Galactic Core was never going to be just another military engagement. It was humanity's ultimate statement to the universe. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UESS Defiance, her hands steady, her eyes reflecting a universe in flux. Beside her, Maya Torres managed a complex web of communication systems that defied traditional understanding of warfare. Dr. Akira Chen's technological innovations hummed through every system, turning each human vessel into a living, thinking weapon. The Zorn Collective's entire remaining armada, over 10,000 ships, faced a human fleet that by all mathematical predictions should have been annihilated within moments. Prediction was about to meet human reality. The first wave of Zorn ships moved with the precision of a surgical strike, biomechanical vessels that could slice through conventional defenses like paper. Their computational systems had analyzed countless battle scenarios, predicted every possible human response. They had never encountered true human unpredictability. Rodriguez's fleet didn't move like a traditional military formation. They moved like a living organism. Ships clustered and dispersed with a fluidity that defied traditional tactical understanding. A damaged vessel would suddenly become a critical defensive node. An escape pod would transform into a signal jamming platform. Maya Torres's communication warfare reached its pinnacle. The adaptive algorithms she had developed were no longer just communication tools. They were a form of distributed intelligence that could hack, redirect, and completely destabilize the Zorn's computational networks in real time. "They're trying to predict us," Maya said, her fingers dancing across quantum communication interfaces. "We're going to make prediction impossible." Dr. Chen's quantum disruption technology turned each human ship into a potential technological virus. The very act of engaging human vessels became dangerous for the Zorn. Their systems would be slowly, methodically invaded and transformed. Lieutenant Marcus Chen watched tactical displays that looked more like abstract art than traditional battle maps. Ships moved in patterns that would have been considered impossible just months earlier. A vessel would appear to retreat, only to become the most critical point of attack. Damaged ships continued to fight, their computational systems adapting faster than the Zorn could analyze. 12 hours into the battle, the Zorn lost more ships than they had in the previous 12 months of conflict combined. It wasn't just a battle. It was a fundamental challenge to everything the Zorn understood about warfare, intelligence, and survival. Rodriguez's flagship, the Defiance, performed what would later be called the impossible maneuver. A series of faster-than-light jumps and simultaneous attack vectors that completely shattered the Zorn's defensive formations. Ships moved in a pattern that was part mathematical precision, part pure human creativity. The Zorn's collective consciousness began to experience something it had never encountered before: true uncertainty. Each human action defied their predictive models. Vessels that should have been destroyed continued to fight. Ships that appeared to be retreating would suddenly become the most dangerous threat. Maya Torres's communication networks transformed the entire battle into a living, breathing computational organism. Information flowed between human vessels faster than the Zorn could intercept or understand. Each ship was both a weapon and a sensor, sharing tactical information through adaptive networks that rewrote themselves faster than the alien systems could analyze. Dr. Chen watched in awe as her theoretical work became devastating reality. The quantum disruption technologies weren't just weapons, they were a complete reimagining of technological interaction. As the battle reached its climax, something unprecedented happened. The human fleet wasn't just fighting. They were evolving in real time, their collective intelligence adapting faster than the Zorn could comprehend. Captain Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos. "We're not just fighting a war," she said, her words transmitted across the entire human fleet. "We're rewriting the rules of existence." The Galactic core became a testament to human innovation. Where the Zorn saw only destruction, humanity saw an opportunity to become something entirely new. The universe was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to turn certain defeat into unexpected victory. The diplomatic chamber was unlike any negotiation space in galactic history. Where previous surrender talks had been clinical, sterile environments of mathematical precision, this room pulsed with a living, breathing complexity that reflected humanity's transformative victory. Representatives of the fractured Zorn collective sat across from humanity's delegation, a group that defied every traditional diplomatic expectation. Captain Elena Rodriguez, Dr. Akira Chen, and Maya Torres formed the core of the human team, each representing a different facet of the species that had just rewritten the fundamental understanding of warfare and intelligence. The Zorn representatives, biomechanical entities that had once seemed utterly alien, now appeared almost hesitant. Their collective consciousness, once a symbol of unassailable technological superiority, had been fundamentally broken. "We do not understand," the primary Zorn representative stated, its communication translated through adaptive linguistic algorithms developed by human researchers. "Our calculations were absolute. Our technological superiority was mathematically certain." Maya Torres allowed herself the smallest of smiles. Calculation is not the same as understanding. The diplomatic negotiations were more than a simple surrender. They were a complete reimagining of galactic power structures. The Zorn had conquered thousands of civilizations by reducing conflict to mathematical equations. Humanity had proven that the most powerful form of intelligence was adaptive, emotional, unpredictable. Dr. Chen stepped forward, presenting a comprehensive analysis that was part scientific report, part philosophical treatise. Her research detailed how human neural patterns, once considered a weakness, were actually the most advanced form of distributed computing in the known universe. "Intelligence is not about processing power," she explained. "It's about the ability to transform, to adapt, to find opportunity in limitation." The Zorn representatives processed this information, their biomechanical interfaces struggling to comprehend a concept that defied their entire understanding of existence. Across the galaxy, the implications were staggering. Civilizations that had been subjugated by the Zorn for millennia began to rise. The human victory was more than a military triumph. It was a philosophical revolution. Captain Rodriguez understood the deeper significance. This wasn't just about winning a war. It was about proving that there were forms of intelligence far beyond cold calculation. The surrender terms were unprecedented. The Zorn would not just cease their conquests. They would become students of the civilizations they had once dominated. Their computational systems would be systematically redesigned, incorporating the adaptive learning principles that humanity had demonstrated. Maya Torres's communication networks became the foundation of a new galactic information system. Where previous communication technologies were rigid and predictable, this new network was living, breathing, constantly evolving. Research institutions across human colonies began to receive unprecedented funding. The technologies developed during the war were now being adapted for exploration, scientific research, medical innovations. The same adaptive computing that had defeated the Zorn would now be used to solve challenges that had seemed impossible. Dr. Chen's research became the foundation of an entirely new field of study: adaptive consciousness. Military academies and research institutions across liberated worlds began studying human history, not as a cautionary tale, but as a blueprint for survival and innovation. The refugee camps that had once been symbols of destruction were transformed into centers of innovation. Every lost colony, every destroyed settlement became a source of strength. The stories of survival became more than historical records. They became a living testament to human resilience. Captain Rodriguez looked out over the diplomatic chamber, understanding that they had done more than win a war. They had introduced the universe to a new way of existing. The Zorn had come to humanity believing they were bringing extinction. Instead, they had awakened a species that would reshape the very understanding of intelligence, survival, and possibility. Maya Torres, Dr. Chen, and Captain Rodriguez stood together, representatives of a species that had turned its greatest challenges into its most profound strengths. The universe would never be the same. Humanity had arrived.